The 2024 MLS season is upon us, which means that Upper 90 is back with the first video of the year, and of course, it will be my predictions for the upcoming season, starting from the bottom to the top of the conference, explaining why and how each team will fall into their place. We have to start at the bottom of the Western Conference, and it's going to be the San Jose Earthquakes in last place. And in basketball, when you have one good player, you can just clear out the lane and go ISO on that defender. That doesn't work so well in soccer, which means that San Jose is going to have a tough season. Christian Espinoza has absolutely no help on this team, which absolutely needs a designated player number 10 after losing Ramiro Montero. In the offseason, he had an underwhelming year last year for sure, but Jeremy Abobasi also regressed last season. He needs to be scoring 15 goals rather than the 10 he scored last season. Cade Cowell was also sold to Chivas and replaced with Amali Pellegrini, who may not even start over Benji Kikanovic. Defensively as well, there's somewhat of an unknown. Miguel Trauco was a big loss, as was Jonathan Mensah, who Luchi Gonzalez inexplicably forced out of the team last season. Bruno Wilson and Vitor Costa are those replacements, who I honestly don't know enough about to comment and judge. However, the biggest reason I'm sure that San Jose will finish last in the Western Conference is that play style. I admire Luchi Gonzalez's footballing philosophy. However, it requires quality players in order to take the game to your opponent, dictate the pace of play with the ball at your feet. They will not be able to do that this season, and therefore will finish last in the Western Conference. Up to 13th in the Western Conference, it will be Austin FC, and yes, they had a bad season last year. It will be another one this year. The Sebastian Driussi and Diego Rubio connection makes sense to me, as Driussi wants to push forward almost as a second striker at times and score some goals himself, while Diego Rubio can be a false nine at times, dropping underneath, connecting play, and probably assisting Sebastian Driussi as well as the other way around. Owen Wolf and Danny Pereira makes a very solid double pivot in defensive midfield, but not much else looks in place for Austin, in my opinion. Emiliano Rigoni has not been worth DP money at all, and Yedar Obrian is no better on the other side. Defensively, there are still more questions than answers, I believe, even though Brad Stuver is a quality backstop in goal. Please, Austin fans, don't laminate me, but we have to move on to number 12 in the Western Conference, which will be the Colorado Rapids. And they had a fantastic offseason, but as I'm going to explain, I don't think it's quite good enough to rebuild the team entirely, which is really what they had to do this offseason. I'm not confident where the goals are coming from. Georgi Mihalovic will absolutely provide those chances, but can Rafael Navarro be a relied upon finisher? Not from what I've seen so far in MLS. I also obviously have no confidence in Kevin Cabral contributing heavily, and Cole Bassett is average at best. Connor Ronan and Lamine Diak with Omer Fernandez looks really solid in that double pivot, but the right side of that back line is weaker than the left side, and I believe that will be exposed by opponents. So that great window is just not enough for them to sneak into the playoffs, in my opinion. Into the 11th spot in the Western Conference, I have gone for the Portland Timbers. And it's not that this team is bad. I just think that they're lacking that top-end talent outside of Evander, and there's also a lot of unknowns. I mean, Diego Chara is 37 years old now. Eric Williamson is coming off an ACL. Antony hasn't looked like a starter in his limited MLS minutes, and outside of Juan Mosquera, the back line looks average to me, leaving Maxime Crepeau to come up big and save them probably in many instances. That puts a lot of weight on Evander and Felipe Mora to carry the load, and that's the type of game plan with a less than ideal coaching hire that keeps you out of playoffs, in my opinion. Phil Neville will not be able to lead that team into the promised land. Into the 10th position in the Western Conference and just missing out on the playoffs, I've gone for Real Salt Lake. And this is because Chicho Arango and Diego Luna have to carry this team. Luna openly admits that he wants to play that number 10 role, but will likely be pushed out onto the left wing with Matt Crooks in the number 10. And I actually think there is a lot of interesting things to watch in this team, but with Andres Gomez underperforming, Jefferson Savarino replaced with Matt Crooks, and my lack of confidence in their defending in transition, really defending at all, I have to say that Real Salt Lake falls into the number 10 spot. Now, moving into the playoffs, just sneaking in, my opinion will be St. Louis City SC. And I actually really like the signing of Chris Durkin. I think it provides a lot of flexibility to move from that 4-4-2 into a 4-2-3-1 when necessary, which I would actually like to see more of with Edward Lovin in the number 10 position. Regardless, though, St. Louis is still going to concede a lot of goals, and Roman Berkey cannot be as good as he was last season. I think Bradley Carnell is a fantastic manager, so I wish I could put them higher, but I have to continue to remind myself that after that incredible start and winning those first 5 games last season, St. Louis was under 500 in all competitions, and even including those first 5 games, they finished last in the Western Conference in the expected goals table as opposed to finishing first in the actual table. That tells you that regression to the mean will occur this season, but I think they'll still be good enough to sneak into those playoff spots. I hate to interrupt, but if you're looking for MLS content on YouTube, this is the channel for you, so hit that subscribe button and join the Upper 90 community in 2024. Alright, back to the video. Into the number 8 slot in the Western Conference, where I have gone for Minnesota United because that front four looks devastating. Of course, led by Emmanuel Reynoso in the number 10 position, he will provide tons of chances for Teemu Pukki as the striker, and from the wings, Robin Lod and Hlongwane will absolutely wreak havoc. You also have help from the bench in Fragapane if he can have an improved season this season. Victor Eriksson cannot be expected to solve their defensive woes from last season, but he should certainly help. And though I don't have confidence in those fullbacks or the double pivot in midfield, I expect Dane St. Clair to be much better than he was last season. Hey, they've also appointed a coach finally. The Manchester United assistant Eric Ramsey is reportedly going to be their next head coach. That is per Tom Bogart. If you're not following him on YouTube, go subscribe to his channel, of course. But he will become the youngest head coach in MLS history at 32 years old. And to give you a little bit of context, Minnesota have 4 players on their roster that are older than that, including their designated player striker, Teemu Pukki. Now, that didn't actually change my prediction for this year at all, but at least they'll have a manager going into the season. Into that number 7 position in the Western Conference, and they will not have to play a play-in, it is the LA Galaxy, and truthfully, this is the most volatile prediction in the Western Conference for me. I like Dejan Joveljic, but he hasn't proven to be a reliable MLS striker yet, and that means that the Galaxy will be heavily dependent on their 2 brand new DP wingers. That is Gabriel Peck, the young Brazilian who is official, and Joseph Paintsil, who again has been reported by Tom Bogart. But they have neither had any time in preseason. They will be joining the team late and will be expected to provide the goals for this team. Now, of course, Galaxy still have a top midfield with Gaston Brugman, Marky Delgado, and Ricky Puig running it. And I also believe that the defense shouldn't be nearly as problematic should they be able to avoid injuries this season. Now, again, it's volatile because injuries could easily derail their season again should they be unlucky once more in 2024. But on the flip side, if those DPs hit, they could be near the top of the conference. If not, near the bottom. I've predicted that middle ground as I rate Joseph Payne still really highly and think that he will hit, if not Gabriel Peck alongside him. 7th place for LA Galaxy. I think that they would be happy with that. Into the 6th position then, where it might surprise some people that I have gone for the Vancouver Whitecaps. But when I look at this team, that midfield and that attack makes me want to believe that we're in store for a brand new Vancouver Whitecaps team. However, the defense and the lack of depth brings me back to earth. I mean, you look at it and Fafa Pico is the only genuine attacking depth for Brian White and Damir Kreilach. That means that Ryan Gauld really has no backup. Ali Ahmed and Sebastian Berhalter are not really a sufficient depth in midfield either, in my opinion, and I'm also unsure about Yohei Takaoka in goal. That said, this is the best Vancouver has looked in years. That starting lineup looks very, very good, and if they can stay healthy, I expect a very, very good season from them. So 6th place wouldn't surprise me at all. In 5th place, I have gone for Ben Olsen's Houston Dynamo, and there's an interesting one here because Nelson Quinones is out for the year, which means that Ibrahim Aliou becomes the starter. Hector Herrera is also sidelined indefinitely at the start of this season and will need to come back fully fit and in top form because he runs everything in Houston. Now, Artur and Griffin Dorsey, as well as Coco Carrasquilla, signed contract extensions this offseason, the last of which is the most important because that means that they will not be losing him in the summer, assuming that they don't, decide to sell him for a massive fee. But they also have a big question mark up front because they will need a bounce back season from Sebastian Ferreira, who went on loan to Vasco da Gama last season, and it looked like the writing was on the wall that he would be gone this season. Instead, he is going to start the season as their number 9, and 2022 gives me some confidence that he can have that bounce back year and put the ball in the back of the net for Houston. But I also hope that Amin Bassi will score more than penalties this year and help Houston into that 5th place position in the Western Conference. Now into the home playoff berths for the Western Conference, and the first of which will be Sporting Kansas City. And even though this team is aging, admittedly, each of the front 3 is MLS proven when fit. Johnny Russell, Daniel Shalhoub, and Alan Pulido have all had fantastic MLS seasons in the past few years, and if they can all put it together, they will be a very dangerous attacking trio. Peter Vermees is the longest tenured coach in the league and showed why last season after weathering that early storm. Obviously, his game model works well in MLS. Eric Tommy will be moving into that number 10 role this season, which I have confidence that he'll be able to do well, though adding a DP number 10 in the summer wouldn't hurt this prediction at all. The defense isn't inspirational to me, but is sufficient to support earning a home playoff game, and that is why Sporting Kansas City falls into the number 4 slot in the Western Conference. In the number 3 slot is FC Dallas, and to me, the upside for Dallas this season is absolutely massive. They have finally spent big on their DP number 9 in Petar Musa from Benfica. This gives them, in my opinion, probably the best front 3 in MLS when Alan Velasco returns from injury. Unfortunately, though, that will take some time, but lucky for Dallas, they have Bernard Comungo in the meantime. They will also be changing formation this year under Nico Estevez to a 3-4-2-1. If you want to know what that's going to look like, it's going to be very similar to what Wilfred Nancy employs in Columbus. I think that will work really well for Dallas in midfield with Ilya Ramendi and Paxton Pomykal snapping into those tackles. I expect a big year from Nkosi Tafari as well, anchoring that back 3. And it finally also looks like it could be the breakout year for Dante Sheely. So this team could genuinely win the West if all goes right, and I don't think that I'm jumping the gun there, and therefore they have to be in my top 3. They could even be higher, as I've said. Into the top 2 in the Western Conference, unsurprisingly, is going to be LAFC in that second slot. Now, there's significant turnover this season for LAFC. Giorgio Chiellini is obviously a major loss. Omar Campos comes in like for like with Diego Palacios, although he's much more attacking, while Diego Palacios is much better defending. Hugo Lloris is an upgrade on Maxime Crepeau. Edward Atuesta comes in as an upgrade on Kellen Acosta. Carlos Vela is still out of contract, but I do expect him to be back, and David Martinez could shock some people, in my opinion, with his impact as an 18-year-old. Thomas Angel is currently the starting striker, but a DP number 9 would make them potential winners of the conference again, though I'm not sure that they will actually sign that player. Regardless, Denny Bouanga ensures that they will get a home playoff game. How much help he gets around him, to me, determines where they finish 1 through 4. But that leaves one team left as the winners of the 2024 MLS Western Conference. It is the Seattle Sounders. I see absolutely no flaws with this team. They retained their entire starting 11 from last season. They lost legend Nico Lodeiro, but I think that is more of an emotional loss than it really is one on the field. On the field, they have actually gotten only better with the additions of Pedro de la Vega as a young designated player, Nathan to boost that defensive solidity, and Danny Musovski as attacking depth. It's always obviously safe to put Seattle at the top of the Western Conference or somewhere around there. But to me, this season is so obvious when they even have a host of young players. We're talking about Joshua Atencio, Daniel Leyva, Obed Vargas, and Reed Baker-Whiting, all fighting for some time should there be an opportunity that presents themselves. I just can't see anything stopping Seattle this season. They are going to win your MLS Western Conference in 2024. And those are my predictions for the Western Conference in 2024. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, and check out my Eastern Conference predictions right here and my awards predictions for 2024 right here. I will see you next time.